The first phase of the IEP process is pre-planning. This is the process of identifying the learner and assessing strengths and needs. Although teachers are not responsible for diagnosis of a learner's possible complex needs, they may be the first to recognize symptoms and behaviors of concern in the classroom. In Nikki's case, the English 9 teacher recognized that Nikki needed special interventions and supports. She talked to Tammy, Nikki's mother, and the counselor. Nikki was then referred to the school-based team. All teachers need to check with their school-based team for direction with the identification and assessment process. Assessment is a systematic process for the gathering, organizing, and recording of evidence and information related to student performance. The purpose of collecting the assessment data is to collaboratively identify and share the student's needs and strengths so that appropriate goals, objectives, performance criteria, supports, and services can be established. There are 3 types of assessment. The first is the current level of performance, which is a snapshot of how a student is currently performing in the classroom. The second type of assessment is called specialized assessment. This includes cognitive and psychological assessment as well as medical and health-related assessments by qualified professionals. The third type of assessment indicates how the student is progressing in relation to his or her IEP goals. To help you through the assessment process, use the acronym of Riot. R is reading, files, reports, school documentation, for example, school-based team notes, discipline records, student's G4 file, confidential file, performance logs, and other relevant information. I is interviewing the learner, the parent or caregiver, previous and current school personnel, and relevant others using such tools as questionnaires, learning logs, and inventories. O is observing the student in a variety of situations and locations using checklists, rubrics, work samples, videos, functional assessment reports, and other observation documentation tools. T is testing the student using a variety of informal tests such as diagnostic skill inventories, curriculum-based measurement, and the specialized assessments administered by qualified specialists. Nikki's IEP team implemented the assessment process following the Riot guidelines. In June, the case manager read through Nikki's files and prepared a summary. This summary includes her school history, her successes and challenges, and strengths. The case manager then arranged to interview Nikki's current teachers and both Nikki and her mother Tammy. As you will see in these video clips, interviews can provide important pieces of information.
So Nikki, this year you're taking science and math with me in alt, right? What are your 2 regular classes?
PE.
PE 10.
And Planning 10.
And Planning 10. Super. Okay. So academically, what do you want to complete this year?
Pass math.
Okay. Do you want to write it in or do you want me to write it in? I think looking at the checklist that you just did, I think kind of the ones that jump out at me is to start with is to sort of help you with the communication so that when you're feeling angry and frustrated, you can let me know somehow. Give me a signal so that I know and I can do something. Put some plans in place so that you can, if you're getting really antsy in the classroom because there's too much going on, that you kind of have a safety valve that you can leave. So maybe if we work on recognizing feelings and talking, so you can tell me what's happening, or tell Leanne, or tell Mrs. P, the counselor.
Okay. Brother, yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Neat. What about, what does she do well in terms of social skills, how she gets along with family, what some of the interactions are like? Her strengths. Right now we're focusing on strengths.
She makes friends easily. It's just really hard for her to keep friends for some reason. She enjoys being around younger kids, younger than her. Yeah, I can't think of a lot of strengths. I know she makes a lot of promises and can't keep them, and I think that that's kind of what, what interferes with her friendship making process. So, yeah.
If you could think about one academic goal, what would the major academic goal be? That
She's got to get through math.
okay.
I think that's a huge issue.
Okay. What about sort of the behavioral, emotional, social goals? What would be two that you'd like to focus on?
I'd like to see her be able to communicate with people without throwing a big fit.
Okay.
And I guess the other thing is just her anxiety. She's anxious all the time,
And that can get so difficult.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly having to reassure.
Yeah.
The concerns and wishes of Nikki and her mother set a focus and a direction for the upcoming IEP meeting. When meeting with the counselor, Nikki's mother Tammy talked about her concerns that Nikki's development may be affected by her alcohol consumption during pregnancy. She mentioned that a referral to the Complex Developmental Behavioral Conditions Assessment Network, or CDBC, was in process. The school counselor, the vice principal, the youth care worker, and some of the teachers agreed to make anecdotal observations of Nikki's behavior in the classrooms and in the hallways. Further observations would be made in the fall. Mrs. P., the school counselor, has developed a good relationship with Nikki and her mom and will be responsible for collecting the observation data from her colleagues. The English 9 teacher and Mrs. P. started the initial classroom-based testing soon after Nikki's arrival in the spring. In addition, the learning resource teacher administered some school-based assessment, and the school-based team referred Nikki to the speech-language pathologist and the school psychologist. Nikki was also referred to the Child and Youth Mental Health Agency. She is currently on a wait list for services. She's also on the wait list for CDBC. Near the end of June, the IEP team gathered to discuss Nikki's strengths and needs as determined by the school-based assessment information. Using the Ministry of Education's Physical Disabilities, Chronic Health Impairments Instructional Support Planning tool, the team looked at Nikki's functioning in the domains of physical, communication, social, emotional, academic, intellectual, and self-determination independence. The IEP team then prioritized 3 domains of concern for Nikki: academic intellectual, social emotional, and communication. The team also discussed supports and services for the next school year. All agreed that Nikki would benefit from the services of the alternate education classroom for afternoons and regular classes for the morning in the first semester. The team then used the POPFAS Leak planning tool to identify strategies for the environment, instruction, and curriculum that would give Nikki a better chance to achieve success in the next school year. A transition plan was put into place for September, and all agreed to meet in October for an IEP meeting. Now, to see how the pre-planning process evolved for Nikki, please download the case study profile. The completed leak page can also be downloaded from this web page. At this stage of the process, the IEP team has a much stronger understanding of Nikki and can now move forward in making an effective plan.